Hey out there, Internet. This is Stickster. I'm going to show something a little bit different than my normal videos, which is some hardware in my setup here. This is not a brag video or anything like that. Studio's in a little bit of disarray right now because I've been moving things around. But I wanted to show off a problem that I solved recently. In order to understand the problem, I'm going to show how a lot of this hardware is set up and then really quickly show you how I solved the problem. Which was to ensure that I could use both my weighted controller here, this Arturia KeyLab MkII, along with the KeyStep Pro that is up here on the rack, to be able to use both of those as controllers for the Digitakt II, which I just got. But also to be able to pass through information so that I could control the other synths here, which are a DeepMind 12 desktop, MicroFreak, the Hydra synth that you see over here, and also this Micro Monster 2. So the problem that I was running into had to do with the sustain pedal. I could not get the sustain pedal to work unless it was hooked up on the KeyStep Pro. And I could not get the sustain messages on, as most of you probably know, are on MIDI CC64. They would not pass through from this Arturia controller. So I'll show you that it's working here. If I show you the display, you can see that my sustain pedal is working fine when I press it. But I couldn't get the messages through. And I'll show you what I did to map this finally. I finally figured it out, banged my head against the wall a little bit, and got it figured out. So real quick, just to give you a tour of how the MIDI is hooked up. Both the Arturia controllers are actually mapped to USB, but I want to be able to use it as a plain old MIDI controller without my computer even being on, so I can practice a DAW-less setup and just try different things. So the MIDI out on the KeyLab II is running up to the KeyStep Pro. The MIDI out 1 on the KeyStep Pro is coming down to the Digitakt in. And notice that I'm using the Digitakt II out, not the through. And that out is passing to the Hydra synth, which is then passing through to the DeepMind, which is passing through to the MicroFreak, which is then its out is set to through, and it is passing finally to the Micro Monster 2. So all these synths now can receive messages. Okay, so how did I make this work? I finally made it work this way. I'm going to show you. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to show you how the Digitakt is set up. So just to start off here, I'm at an empty setup right now. It's an empty pattern that I was just using with a template kit, and I'll show you how I'm doing this. So if I go into setup and into MIDI config, I don't think much in the sync really matters here, but I'll show it anyway, just in case. I'm receiving clock, I am receiving transport and program change. I'm not sending those because I actually want the master signals to come from either the KeyStep Pro upstream, or if I am using a DAW, I want that to come from Pro Tools. Or whatever DAW. I'm using Pro Tools. Somebody else might be using something different. That's fine. They all pretty much do the same thing. So that's how the sync is set up. The port config, I'm not sure any of this matters, but I'll show it off anyway. The out and through ports are set to MIDI. The input from and output to are MIDI and USB. Even though I'm not running USB right now, I do have a USB cable plugged in, so I can use Overbridge when I need it. The output channel is on auto. Parameter output is CC instead of an RPN. The encoder destination is internal. The trigger key destinations are internal and external. I will probably mess with this encoder destination because I might want internal and external in that. I haven't figured out yet whether that's a good idea, but I'm going to experiment. The mute destinations are internal, and right now I'm receiving notes and CC messages. So the other thing that I'm doing here is on the channels, just to make this really easy to understand. I know I'm flipping through this menu, but I'm at the top now. Basically, every channel is set to the same number MIDI channel. Okay, and so what I've done is I've actually, let me finish up here. The FX and auto channel are both set to 1 right now, and the program change messages are traveling on auto. instead of a set channel. Now, I'm not really sure whether that's something I need. I've not been doing a lot with program change messages in what I'm doing here, but that I may experiment with that over time as well. So important thing to remember here is also how I have the Digitakt set up. So in my tracks, if I select track 12 here, let me get out of the menu, back up here, and track 12, I go to source, and what you'll see is I'm on MIDI channel 2 for track 12. And similarly, if you'll watch the display, you're going to see that if I switch to 13, I'm on channel 3, 14 is 4, and 15 is 5 in this setup. And that matches my 4 hardware synths. I'm not using track 16 for anything special yet. Who knows, I might do that. But this is a kit that I've set up specifically for this type of scenario. So track 12, which is MIDI channel 2, goes to the Hydra synth. Track 13, which is channel 3, is going up to the DeepMind. Track 14 on the Digitakt is mapping to channel 4, which is going to the Microfreak, and track 15, which is MIDI channel 5, is going to the Micromonster. And of course, all those synths are set up properly to send and receive on their appropriate channels. So just keep that in mind. Now, by setting these things up this way, what I found is that until I got this set up right, I was running into a problem where the sustain pedal was not mapping properly from the KeyLab II. I could make it work fine from the KeyStep Pro, and I have a sustain pedal down here, which is working, but I don't always want to turn around from the station and looking at the screen in order to turn over to the KeyStep Pro, be playing above my shoulders and using that sustain pedal. I mean, it's fine when I need to use it. It's very, very useful for a lot of things, but that is not the thing I wanted to do all the time in the studio. A lot of the time I like to be able to just work from this surface here. So by hooking up this setup the way I showed you, now what I'm able to do is by using the MIDI channel selector that's over here on the Arturia, I can select MIDI channel 12, and you'll notice the synth works. And better yet, if I hit sustain, you're going to see that sustain here. And you'll notice that it is properly sustaining, just like we would expect. So that's working properly. The same way if I use the KeyStep up here, and using the pedal down there, everything's working fine too. So this is fantastic, and I'm really, really happy to get that working. I'm going to show you a couple other things, just in case this is helpful for somebody else out there who's struggling with some hardware integration, in case this helps you. I've also done something here, which is to map the pads in this particular Arturia setup patch. I've mapped these pads so that they go from C-2, which is MIDI note number 0, all the way up to MIDI note number 16, which I think is D sharp -1, if I remember correctly. And those are notes 0 to 15 in MIDI terms. And so what you're going to find is if I hit these pads, right now, nothing is going to happen. I'm going to explain why that is in a moment. But those pads are mapped, as you can see, and you're going to see pad numbers that don't reflect the same as the note, because I'm actually going from 0 to 15 from left to right, bottom to top, because I like to be able to reach these sooner. So using this for the kick and this for the snare, like 1, 2, 3, 4, this makes more sense to me than having to go all the way up here for 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can map these any way you like. It's fine. I've just done it this way from C-2 all the way through here up to D sharp -1. Right? And what those are going to do is those are going to be used to trigger the Digitakt II. They will actually serve as fixed velocity triggers for tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 16. Of course, if you hit pads for 12, 13, 14, 15, those are mapped to the synths, which means whatever note value the Digitakt has as a default is going to pass through that MIDI channel. And that means that you're going to hear that note on the Hydra synth, or on the DeepMind or on whatever, right? So here is the catch. This may throw, this is the thing that threw just a tiny wrench in, but I'm willing to live with this as long as my sustain pedal works. And that is, whichever way you have your KeyStep Pro set up on that very first track, the very first track I have mapped. Oh, I probably should show you that, shouldn't I? That would probably make sense. Let me show you how the KeyStep is mapped. So if I go to utility here, let me zoom in so it's a little easier to see what's going on. And I show you the MIDI channels that are set up. Track 1 and input and output are set to 12. Track 2 to 13, etc., etc. All of that is set up as you expect. So in other words, track 1 is 12, track 2 is 13, track 3 is 14, track 3 is 14, and track 4 is 15. And then the drum input is set to channel 1. Right, and the reason for that is because that's the channel that on the Digitakt I mapped as the auto channel. And the reason that comes in handy is because then I can use the drum sequencer. I'll zoom out a little here. I can use the drum sequencer as the triggers for the Digitakt with variable volume. Obviously, you can hear that going on. One other thing I should show you, in order to make that work, I had to do one other setup on the KeyStep Pro. Which again, let me zoom in here and show where that is. If I go out here to the drum map, you want to be in mode chromatic, which is the default mode, so that probably is set for many of you. And then in the config, the custom setup is a different setup. I'm not using that right here. But if I go to chromatic, which is the drum map I'm using, you have to set the low note to 0, which is different than the default setting, which I think is something like 32. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's in the manual. So set that low note to 0. Remember, that is the same note that we mapped the very first pad on the Arturia KeyLab II as well, right? So what we're telling KeyStep Pro at that point is to map these notes from 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up. Now at some point here they stop acting as triggers because you've only got 16 triggers to map to on the Digitakt, but it goes all the way up to, you guessed it, D sharp up here, D sharp -1. So you can then use these. And now you can use this as an input if you don't like using the buttons on the Digitakt for some reason, or if there are other things you want to do, like have the expression of using the mini keys here as opposed to the fixed volume, which is how the keys on the Digitakt work. Now you can do that. Here is the catch. All of this setup works nicely. If you remember, when I was down here earlier, you'll notice that when I hit these pads, they didn't work. Now they will. So the catch here is that when I am set to any MIDI channel on the Arturia KeyLab, no matter how my keyboard is mapped, these are sending on channel 1. The only catch is that if the KeyStep Pro right now is set to drum, what that means is it will pass channel 1 messages out that it receives in. In other words, it will respect what the KeyLab II does, and it will send those out just the same as if I hit this keyboard. But if I change it to sequence, in other words, now it is acting on channel 12 and sending out on channel 2 on the Digitakt, as I've mapped. Now these don't work anymore, but keyboard does. So the only thing that I have to do now is when I want to use those triggers for some reason, I need to change the KeyStep here to drum so that those pads will work if I want to use them for sending in a sequence. Otherwise, I will just leave this on sequence, and that way the keyboard will work and the drum pads over here will not. And I can live with that. This is a compromise that I'm okay with. Now, there are ways you could MIDI merge these messages, like I could send both these controllers output to a MIDI merge box of some sort. And I imagine if I spent enough on that box, I could probably get custom functions in it that will eliminate duplicate messages, or things of that nature. Or for that matter, I guess I could plug these in separately to a merge, and then, because I'm only going to be running one of these controllers at a time, probably, right? And then merge those to the Digitakt. But I don't have a MIDI merge box, so I'll think about getting one, but this works great for me right now. I'm sorry this video went on too long. I hope it helped explain some of this setup, and I hope that it helps somebody out there with mapping their own hardware. This was a particular problem that I wanted to solve, so that my studio worked the way that works for me. You might like working a different way, and that is absolutely fine. There's 100 ways or 1,000 ways to skin a cat, not just one. This is simply my way of doing that. The thing that this solved for me was the sustain pedal. The sustain pedal issue for me was a deal breaker. Well, maybe not a deal breaker, because I really love this Digitakt. It is amazing. It's a great little box, and I got a good deal on it, so I'm really happy with it. But I really, really needed that sustain pedal to work when I'm playing synthesizers along with it to record or do other work. And so it was definitely hurting that I couldn't make that happen. So now that I have both those sustain pedals working, it's great. Now, also keep in mind, the Digitakt doesn't record sustain pedal controls. It is a sampler. It's not a synthesizer. It does a lot of things that a monosynth can do, for example. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this, but it is not a synthesizer by trade. It is a sample unit and a glorified drum box, I guess. And it's amazing for that. I mean, just amazing. But it doesn't handle sustain pedal messages itself. It doesn't do anything with them, and it doesn't record them. I only needed these to work for playback, so that when I'm recording from these synthesizers, the things come out of them in the way that I want to play them, including expression with the sustain pedal. So this solved that problem for me, and I hope it solves it for somebody else out there. So until next time, I hope you have fun doing whatever you're doing with synthesizers. I promise there will be some more videos coming through on UVI Falcon, maybe even some things that I'm doing with it and the Digitakt. So stay tuned. And until then, have a lot of fun. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.